going to make Schnecken, one of my family's secret recipes. It's a very interesting cookie. It looks a lot like a cookie called a rugelach, but the dough is very similar to a pie dough, except that it has yeast in it. So it creates this very interesting texture. And it has a couple of steps, and we're going to just dig right in. And I'm going to show you what my hands are doing. But first, check out my eyelashes. I figured out how to put on false eyelashes. I've only tried, I don't know, 40 or 50 times. Finally figured it out. I watched a whole bunch of YouTube videos, and then as I was trying them one more time, I looked down at my makeup table, and lying on top of it was a dental pick that I'm not remembering sure why it was out there. I think I bought them ages ago as to clean around the braces, and realized it was the exact right shape to hold down the edges of the false eyelashes as the glue dried, and you could just dab on a little bit more. What a great tip. Nobody said that on YouTube. I figured it out myself. Aren't I clever? Okay, on to the cookies. By the way, feeling okay today, but I think I'm a little bit slower. I know I'm a little bit slower. It took me until 11:30 in the morning to get dressed and get moving. Oh well, better late than never. On to the cookies. So we're going to take 1 1/4 cups of nuts. These happen to be pecans. You can use walnuts if you'd like. Or almonds. I've used those before. 1 cup of sugar. And 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. I love cinnamon, so I'm putting a rounded teaspoon in there. And you're just going to pulse these until the nuts are well ground. Just like that. Now you're done. It should look like this. The nuts are ground pretty fine and all incorporated with the sugar and the cinnamon. Smells delicious. So, for the dough, we are going to take 3 cups of flour and put it in the food processor. And 1 package of yeast. Oh, screw that on pretty tight. Which you've seen before. I have this very nifty snifty measuring spoon, which measures exactly 1 package of yeast. And we're going to put in 2 sticks of margarine that I have cut up by the tablespoonful. Yes, I'm using margarine. Yes, I know. But it's an old recipe and it uses margarine. If you use butter, it doesn't quite taste the right way. So now we're going to just cut in the butter, the margarine, into the flour mix. We want to make, this part is just like pie dough. You want the margarine to become the size of peas, small peas. So we're going to pulse 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're going to take a look and put our hand in, and I can feel that the butter is still pretty big. Pieces of margarine, sorry, are this big. That's too big. So we're going to give it another 10 pulses. And take a look. Put your hand in, and I can feel that the margarine is exactly right. So the pieces of margarine are basically this sized and a little bit smaller. And that's what we want. We want there to be pockets of the fat in the dough. Now we're going to add right to this mix 1 cup of the sour cream. Splop. Sticky, which is why we use this kind of measuring thing. And 3 egg yolks. And now we just mix until it's all incorporated together. And it's going to form a dough. Just like that. As soon as it looks like this, it is perfect. Feels a lot like Play-Doh. It's kind of sticky and very clay-like. Now you're going to take some flour and flour your board. Not too terribly much, but just enough so that you can work the dough just a little bit. And you're going to pull the mixture out of the machine. Like I said, it's very dense and sticky, or clay-like, I guess is a better term. Now, some in the family swear by certain brands of margarine. I haven't really been able to tell the difference in brands of margarine, but you can tell the difference between butter and margarine. And like I said, it's a family recipe, so if you like the way butter tastes, and you like the texture of it, use butter. In order to get true Lustig Weinstein family Schnecken, you need margarine. Alright, see if I can move the camera. There we go. So now all you're going to do is sort of roll it around the flour, get it off your fingers, and just make it into a cohesive dough. So you're just going to knead it a couple times. And now this is one trick that I don't know that anybody else in the family does, but I do it because now we need to refrigerate the dough, and then we're going to refrigerate it, and then we're going to cut it into 8 pieces and roll it out into the sugar mixture. If you'll remember or realize, this dough has 0 sugar. This is not a sweet dough. But it does have to sit in the refrigerator for about an hour to chill. Although this is really cold dough because I used frozen margarine because I wasn't thinking ahead. So here's my little trick. I cut it into discs now. And transfer this to the refrigerator. And now, when they're ready to be worked, I can take one out one at a time and leave the rest in the fridge. Ta-da! Look like biscuits. Half a cup of the sugar mix right onto your board. And then put your dough right onto the sugar mix. And press it down and flip it over and press it down. The secret to these cookies is to really mash the sugar mixture into the dough. So now you're just going to take your rolling pin and roll it into the sugar mixture. And you're going to collect a little sugar mixture beneath it each time, so you're really mushing it in there. And you want this pretty thin because we're going to roll it up, so we're creating flaky layers. And when it's about as thin as you kind of want it, which is about like that, and that is pretty thin. It's about less than 1/4 of an inch, I'd say. Now you're going to take your pizza cutter And you're just going to cut it into 8 wedges just like you'd cut a pizza. You go halves by halves and halves again. Whoops, stay down there. Roll them, and now you roll them up. Starting from the biggest end. Can you see? Can you see? You're going to take the large end here and just roll it forward until the little end, the little pokey bit is just on the bottom. And you're going to pinch and form into the shape of a crescent. And then you put it on the cookie dough, on the sheet pan. And they don't have to be very far from each other, so we can probably get, so you're just going to get faster and faster at this. And this is what it looks like with half of the dough made and on the cookie sheets. I'm a bit of a nut about my cookies, and I like them to bake. I only bake 1 sheet of cookies at a time on the top rack, as high up as it will go without touching the elements. There's the cookies in the oven. The oven is at 375, and we're going to leave them in for exactly 15 minutes. So we have about a minute or so until the first batch is done. Exactly a minute. There was the beep. I timed myself to see how long it took to do the other half of the recipe, the other 4 discs, and it took exactly 6 minutes. So I think this is a long recipe, but it is not a long recipe. It really does come together very quickly, and rolling it out is not all that hard. I don't know why I don't like rolling things out. But the funniest part is that this is a family recipe, so I'm kind of excited to see what the rest of the family says about this video. So the only other time I think we've all cooked together, or most of us cooked together, was my Aunt Faye, my Aunt Susan, and my cousin Meredith and I were all in a kitchen at the same time, and we were going to make Grandma's blueberry blintzes. These are so good. Yet another idea for another video. And they were ubiquitous. Grandma always, the cookies are done! I'll be back to this. Perfect cookies. They're lightly brown. So Grandma always had blueberry blintzes. Always. My grandmother adored blueberries. In fact, when we were going through her recipe books, she had 5 or 6 of those old-fashioned 3x5 card recipe boxes, and there were just 2 of them just filled with blueberry recipes. It's pretty funny. But anyway, we're all going to sit around and we're all going to make blueberry blintzes. And I start to make the batter, and you know, at each point in this recipe, somebody said, "What are you doing? That's not how you do it." And each of us swore up and down that that's how Grandma had taught us, or their mother had taught them to make this recipe. Meredith was the only one who hadn't had a lesson from Grandma, so she couldn't weigh in. But the 3 of us were just convinced it wasn't going to work because they were doing it wrong. It was very funny. So now that the cookies have had a second or 2 to cool down, I'm going to taste one for you. Oh, look how pretty. So they should look hot, 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 hot. I may not be able to taste it. It's really wicked hot. So it's lightly brown, and it has just a little bit of brown on the bottom. I don't care if I burn my mouth. Mmm. Mmm. So the inside is still just a little bit doughy, and as they sit out, they'll continue to bake a little bit, and it won't be quite as doughy. But I don't know if you can see all the little layers in there. They're delicious. These are my favorite cookies. These are the cookies that I requested for my birthday every year. I could eat these by the bazillionfuls. I think I told you the story about the cookies in Grandma's ice freezer out back, and how she would have thousands of cookies in there, and every day I'd eat 3 or 4 of these thinking she can't tell, not knowing that she doesn't really look at her cookies every day. And she probably went in there and went, "Where the hell are all the cookies?" after a couple months. But these are good. All right, follow me, continue to play with me. We're having fun. See you at our next play date.